cold tea for later. Get the microwave going. All right. So, lie down on your backs. And just have a think back to what we were doing on Tuesday before our big break. Can you remember back that far? So the last ATM Moshe taught. And just see what you remember of those movements that you were playing around with. Ooh, it's not those ones, it's these ones. Is that good? All right. So there was quite a few movements of lifting your pelvis. If you remember, on stage, you're just thinking it through. What do you remember? You were lifting your pelvis, shifting your weight up towards the back of your chest and a little higher gradually. There was a fair bit of seesawing movements. Remember, whilst your pelvis was up in the air. Where were your arms? Can you remember having your arms underneath your back? And there were a few different things you did with your arms. You held your wrist, you held your elbows, and you were bringing your elbows through from one side to the other side as your pelvis was up in the air, as your weight was up on the back of your upper chest towards the base of your neck. And the last part of that lesson, you were making circles around that upper part of your thoracic spine, lower part of your neck, around C7T1. Do you have a memory of that movement? So could you bend your knees up? Have your feet standing. Find a place for your feet where they will support the weight of your legs, but also where they give you enough support for your pelvis to be able to lighten from the floor. If your feet are slipping, taking your socks off is not a bad idea. And could you very slowly start to lift your pelvis and feel, how do you do that? What's the first thing you do? What happens to your pressure on the floor? And gradually start to enlarge that movement so that your pelvis starts to lift, and notice what happens under your feet. And notice what happens in your chest, in your shoulders, in your shoulder blades, in your arms. What about your neck, your jaw and your eyes? So we can think of this as just a movement of lifting your pelvis, but of course it's a movement that involves all of you. As you start to lift and lower your pelvis, can you have that idea that every amount of work turns into movement? That's not a nice way of saying it, but yeah. Does some of your effort just turn into holding and bracing, or does all of that effort turn into movement? And all of those lovely explorations that we did in that last lesson. Softened your spine, softened your shoulder girdle, softened your ribs. Remember that phrase that Moshe used, that you will have a human spine. So now can you bring your arms underneath your back with your pelvis lifted and hold your elbows. And see if you can find that movement that we ended with last time. So lifting your pelvis to let your arms come underneath your back so that one hand can hold the opposite elbow. Each hand is holding an elbow or close to an elbow. And also remember what he said about hurting yourself. If you're going to hurt yourself in this ATM, you may as well just rip your shoulders off now and get it over with. So be gentle with yourself. Find a way to bring your arms into that position, your pelvis up into that position. And how do you shift the weight a little further up and down at that base of your neck, the upper part of your thoracic spine? How do you organise to do that? And could you turn that into little circles around that part? Lifting your pelvis and moving your pelvis in such a way that you can shift the pressure around that upper part of your chest, the base of your neck. And as you do that, how high does your pelvis go? What happens in your shoulders, your shoulder blades, your breathing? Where are your eyes directed? What happens in your jaw, your toes, everywhere? And then come down and have a rest. And see, has that already changed something in the way that you lie on the floor? Sense your breathing here. How much movement is there in your ribs, your sternum, your whole trunk? And bring your knees up again, stand your feet. And this time have your arms just resting alongside you on the floor. Notice how far you choose to have your arms from your sides. It's the same on each side. And could you lift your pelvis? Notice how you do that. Are you using that method of rolling your pelvis and lifting link by link? Or are you doing more of a straight lift? You can play around with both of those options. And as you lift your pelvis and you shift the pressure, the weight-bearing part of you upwards, your arms are just by your sides now, just by your sides. And so without that complication of having your arms underneath you, how does that feel for you? And could you make some circles around that top part of your chest now? Where's the center of your circle? Does it feel like you're right up at T1, C7? Is it a little lower? and have this soft, flexible spine in this very unusual position that allows you to shift your weight on the floor. In this part of you that would normally never be a weight-bearing surface, very rarely. Are you still breathing? Is your head free to be part of this movement? And what happens in your shoulders and your shoulder girdle? How much pressure is there under your shoulder blades? And what are your arms doing? Are they lying there? Are they pressing into the floor? Is there a sense of engagement or disengagement? Come down and rest whenever you like. And then let it go. Everybody have a rest. And you can rest in any position, of course. It's nice to come back onto your back and just check out whether things feel different there. But then you can rest on your side if you want to, or any position that gives you a good rest. And each time we come back, feel your contact with the floor. Notice if things are changing for you. So come up again and have your arms by your side again. Come up and lift your pelvis and find that circular movement again. And this time go around in the opposite direction if you haven't already done that. If you've done both of them, you just go between them, clockwise, anti-clockwise. Feel if there's a difference for you. One direction is more available, it feels simpler. So you're just trying to make this as easy, as light, as smooth as possible. All right, come back down for a rest. You can rest in that position with your legs up for a moment. And can you take your arms now out to your sides? So about 90 degrees from your trunk, or whatever's comfortable, and have your palms up to start with. Yep, so your arms are out to the sides, your palms are towards the ceiling. Sense how that changes the position of your shoulder girdle, what happens in your ribs. And then lift your pelvis again, lightly. And feel just at the very start of that movement, if you're already up, come down again. The very start of that movement, what happens in your shoulders, in your shoulder girdle? And the pressure on the floor, underneath your shoulder blades. And start to do circles again. A few in one direction, a few in the other direction. And keep track of how everything's going for you. So your breathing, your jaw, your eyes, the soles of your feet. Can you spread that lifting of your spine through the whole length of your spine, through your whole trunk? And sense how the shape of your torso changes as you do these circular movements. How your pelvis moves through space to let that happen in the top part of you. That's it. And come down for a rest. And then with your arms out to the sides, just turn them over so now your palms are down. And go between those two positions a couple of times. Palms up, palms down. Feel how that changes. Not just your hands, your forearms, your elbows, your upper arms, shoulder blades, clavicles, all those places we've been exploring. And then with your palms down, lift your pelvis again on your standing feet and notice how you do that. How do your arms help you to organise? So do they brace? Do they do something else? Can you shift the weight up into this place with your arms in this position and start to make those circles again? Really feel, is there part of the circle that you're getting to know really well that feels lovely and comfortable and easy? Are there some parts of this circle that are still a little unclear? And if you're in an unclear part, what's happening with your breathing, with your pelvis? That's it. And is there any movement of your shoulder blades on the floor? Or are they locking up? And come down, have a rest again. Check in, how are you feeling? You're going to cope with a lot more of this lifting your pelvis, or you're starting to be uncomfortable, in which case you need to figure out how to go softer, lighter, have more rests, be kinder to yourself. Okay, so on your back again, and with your arms alongside you, with your palms up, but a little bit away from you, well, wherever it's comfortable. Yeah. So, lift your pelvis again. Feel how the weight transitions from resting on your pelvis to resting on your upper chest. With your arms by your sides, with your palms up, whilst you continue to make those circles, could you very, very slowly start to slide your arms along the floor towards the direction of coming over your head? And when I say slowly, yeah, you might think slowly, like if you imagine a butterfly unfurling its wings for the very first time, that's slowly. So that you have time to sense, so they're coming along the floor, sweeping out to the sides and gradually coming further up, and just bring them as far above your head as it feels comfortable. So if directly above your head feels like you're stretching it, just take them up to maybe a Y shape rather than a full over the head position. And feel what's changing as you keep those circles going. And your arm position is changing. Can your shoulders and your shoulder girdle be free enough to allow this movement of your arms upwards? Feel how everything changes until you come towards the place where your arms are overhead on the floor. You can stop and let your pelvis down at any point and then come back to it. So don't force yourself to push beyond your comfort level. How does the shape of your torso change as your arms come further up? What happens in your chest, in your sternum, your ribs, your clavicles play a part in this? You're still breathing, and when your arms are up in that up position, wherever that is for you, how are those circles going now? And is there a sense of softness through your shoulder girdle? Is there movement over your shoulder blades? Movement in your arms? Or do they stay stuck on the floor? And then let that down, let your pelvis down, have a rest, bring your arms down. And what's happening? How do you feel on the floor now? So Feldenkrais says in this ATM, your inquiry is to find yourself as you would like to be. So if you have that idea at the forefront as we keep going through this lesson, might shift your way of observing yourself. So bring your knees up again, feet standing. This time, can you bring your arms towards the ceiling so they're parallel to each other, they're not touching, and your palms are facing each other. Okay. And with your arms in this position, so your hands aren't touching, they're just about shoulder width apart. So now lift your pelvis, shift the pressure upwards, and keep your arms in this position. And start to make those circles again. So your palms are apart from each other. They're just parallel to each other. That's it. And find a way to do those circles with your arms now in this position, which changes the relationship of your shoulder blades to the floor. And what happens in your arms? Do they just stay statically there, or can you feel these circles somehow have a connection? Not in a rigid way, but in this really soft connecting. You're still breathing. You still have a soft neck and jaw and eyes. Clear sense of your pelvis moving through space. That's it. And let your pelvis down for a rest. You can let your arms down too. We'll come back to that. So bring your arms again to that position, just like you had them before. You can bend your knees up actually, but don't lift your pelvis yet. And then just turn the backs of your hands to face each other. And just feel that a few times. What changes when your palms are facing each other and then the backs of your hands are facing each other? How does that go through your arms, your shoulders, your shoulder girdle, your chest, anything else? How far through you does that extend as you turn, rotate your arms? So the next time the backs of your hands are facing each other and the palms of your hands are facing outwards, could you lift your pelvis again and come back to making those circles? The circles where are they happening now? They're getting clearer, pelvis getting lighter. Your head part of this movement. And with your arms in this position, what changes? And let that down, let your arms down, let your legs down, have another rest. And just feel on your back before you change position. How's your contact with the floor going? Are there some parts of you becoming clearer? And you can rest in any position, sorry. Those of you who are going to roll over. Sense yourself in that transition. Okay, bend your knees up again. And this time bring your arms towards the ceiling and connect your hands, the palms of your hands to each other. That's it. Your elbows are straight but not locked. Your hands are together. Lift your pelvis again with your arms in this position. So just your palms together. Lift your pelvis. Now, with your pelvis lifted, could you just shift your arms a little to the left and a little to the right and feel, without bending your elbows, and just see how that shifts your weight. You feel what happens at the back of your ribs, your shoulder blades, thoracic spine. Yep, no, your palms are staying together. So it's like tilting the triangle, yeah, that movement. Your elbows stay straight, your palms stay glued together. And with your pelvis lifted like this, can you feel that shift of weight? It's like massaging the back of your upper ribs into the floor. That's it. Come down for a little pause, just to give yourself a rest for a minute. And then when your arms are ready to come up again, when your pelvis is ready to lift again, just tilt your arms to the right a little bit and feel that you could make circles on that part of your upper chest. So your palms are together again, your arms are straight. You tilt that triangle to the right, feel how the weight shifts onto a different part of your upper ribs there, and start to make circles around that place. So your arms stay to the right. Is your head with your arms? Does it stay still? What happens here? And we're can you feel that part where your ribs come in and join the side of your vertebra, and where they come across, sweep under your shoulder blade? We're in that area, making circles softly, gently, lightly, comfortably. That's it. Come down for just a little pause, and then we're going to do the same thing to the left. And just so that you give yourself permission to rest and to let go of any effort, so that when you start again, you start with less and less effort. So arms in that same position, palms together, elbows straight but not locked. Lift your pelvis into the air, and now tilt your arms to the left. Feel how the pressure shifts onto the left side of your upper chest, just to the left of your spine. Find a place there that can support your weight and that you could make circles around those upper ribs on the left. Breathing, feeling the freedom of your shoulder blades. Okay, let your pelvis down again for a pause. Let your arms down for a pause. And when you're ready to come up again, the same position. So your hands together, your palms together. You lift your pelvis, tilt your arms a little to the right and a little to the left. And as you do that and you're shifting your weight from one side to the other side, can you feel also how your sternum moves? Shifts in relation to your spine. So your spine's staying there, but your sternum is moving at the front, that flexibility of your ribs that allows that to happen through your shoulder girdle and your arms. And then can you start to make circles with your hands and see if those circles with your hands, with your arms, can correlate to the circles that you're making with your on your upper back, on that area at the top of your spine, top of your thoracic spine somewhere or other, top of your chest. When your arms move in a circle, how does that relate to the circle underneath you, the circle of your pelvis, your feet? And can your arms make a slightly bigger circle than you're making with your upper back? So what happens if your arms swing around in a larger circle? And change direction. Ooh, what happens to your feet? Do you lose them when your attention goes up to your arms? Is your head still mobile and soft? And then come back to smaller circles with your arms. And then have a rest. Have a rest. And just check in. How are you on the floor? Okay. How are you distributing your weight at the back of you now as you're resting? So, bring your feet to standing again. And this time, can you bring your arms up towards the ceiling, but could you hold your right wrist with your left hand? That's it. Lift your pelvis into the air again. Is it getting lighter? Is it changing? Is the pressure at the top of you changing? So now with this hand holding your right wrist, can you use your left hand to draw your right arm across towards the left. So it's not a yank, it's a soft movement. And feel how that left elbow comes towards the floor. So how soft can your chest be and your shoulder girdle to let that movement happen, and feel how your weight shifts even further across to the left now, underneath you. How do you allow that pressure to come onto your left shoulder blade? Bit of breath holding going on. So notice if that's you, how you can keep breathing as you do this. What happens to your head? What needs to soften? And as you do this, you could just experiment with letting your pelvis be a little higher or a little lower, and see if that changes it. So if your pelvis is lower, does that change the way you're shifting your weight across to the left here? And then if your pelvis is higher, what happens? Where's the easiest position for your pelvis and your spine to allow that shift across towards the left? To bring that left elbow in the direction of the floor, which doesn't mean it has to touch. So your arms are soft. Feel all of that movement of your ribs and your sternum, shoulder blades, your collarbones. Your whole spine changes shape. And let that go and have a little break, just a pause, but feel the effects of that. Does something feel like it's shifted, changed there? Then bring your arms overhead, so on the floor above your head or wherever they can get to easily and comfortably in that direction. So on the floor, long overhead. Yep. Lift your pelvis and just see, does one arm feel longer than the other after doing that last little movement? And if you just sense whether one side of you, one arm seems to lengthen further here. And if you start to make those circles again around upper thoracic vertebrae, base of your neck, so you're lifting your pelvis, you're making those circles, and feel how the right arm responds to those circles, and feel how the left arm responds to those circles. Maybe not just your arm, your shoulder blade, your head, ribs. Okay. And come back and rest. Let your pelvis down, let your arms down. So we're going to do that, say, a similar exploration the other direction. When you're ready, you can bend your knees up, bring your arms towards the ceiling, and this time hold your left wrist with your right hand. Lift your pelvis as high as you're comfortable to lift it, and start to draw your hands towards the right, so your right arm just brings your left hand across towards the right, so your right elbow's coming towards the floor. And feel, how do you shift the weight across towards the right and back again, so it's not just getting there and staying. You're coming across to the right, back to the middle, and each time feeling how can your ribs and your shoulder blades accept the weight that shifts onto it. And does it make a difference whether your pelvis is higher or lower? It will make a difference. See if you can figure out what the difference is. Where's the easiest place? Feel, stay with your sense. So you're right, both arms are out. You're sort of making this, your left arm is lengthening across. Your shoulder blade and your collarbone are coming with it. What does your sternum do? How does your sternum move relative to your spine to let this happen? Lift your pelvis a little higher, a little lower. Where is it easier, smoother? How does that shift? And then let your arms come down, let your pelvis come down. Rest for a moment and then bring your arms above your head again on the floor. And feel how that is now. Lengthening yourself out like that. Feel how you... And if your elbows aren't resting on the floor, you don't need to go all the way overhead. Bring your hands and your arms to where they're comfortable. Where they can rest comfortably on the floor. And then lift your pelvis and do some smooth, easy, light circles as you've been doing. And see if anything's different there. You feel something in your shoulder blades that maybe wasn't happening before, or it wasn't as clear. Softness in your ribs. This part of us that doesn't often know how to soften. How does your head respond? What are your eyes doing? And your jaw? Your feet still giving you really clear support. And if you've made circles in both directions, let your arms down, have a rest. And sense the contact at the back of you. Are you aware of more detail in that contact? How are you breathing? How much of you is able to move with the expansion of the volume as your breath comes in, and then the reducing of that volume as your breath goes out. So one last time. This time just have your arms alongside you, wherever they're comfortable. Bend your knees up. Find a place for your feet. Is that getting clearer now? How your feet can support you in this movement. And lift your pelvis to make circles in one direction and in the other direction, and just see how this is going now. How high does your pelvis lift easily? How flexible is your spine, your trunk, your rib cage, rib basket, your sternum? And what's your sense of that involvement of your shoulder blades and your collarbones, the upper ribs, first rib, the second rib, all those places that we've been exploring on the skeleton and on each other. And let that come to an end. Let your pelvis down. Have a rest. Observe yourself on the floor. You might have a sense of a change in length or width or heaviness or lightness, or some particular part of you may feel different. See what comes up for you. And then can you roll to your side and come up to standing. And sense how that roll happens. Sense how you bring your pelvis and your whole trunk into the upright position. How do your shoulders and your arms fit into that? And find a way to come onto your feet. That's it. And what do you notice here? Where does your attention go? And if you wanted to shift your weight on your feet, side to side, forwards, backwards, maybe around in a circle, how would it feel to lift one arm, the other arm, both arms? And see, how does that connect to your support, your feet, your pelvis, your trunk? And then start to walk. And what do you notice in your walking? And I'll leave you to ponder that question. Oh, I'll just say, what Moshe said at the end was, be astonished how much you have improved. So are you astonished? I hope so. Perpetually astonished. And we'll go into a break now.